disciplined policies, yes, they benefit capital, but they're also critical to the improved welfare of labor as well. So this example is personal for me. It's a story of two islands, Jamaica and Barbados. Professor Kaufman, I know, is from Barbados, so I guess we have the two islands represented on opposite sides of the room here today. So what I've done here is I've graphed the average and index of GDP per capita in Jamaica and Barbados, and I've artificially started them at the same point in 1960, although there were some differences there. Jamaica began at that point in time, it's about $3,000 per capita. Barbados was about $4,500 per capita. And the picture is in some ways self-explanatory. It's divergence, big time. If we fast forward through 2010, the average GDP per capita in Barbados is over $10,000. Jamaica is about $5,000. Let me add to this, Barbados did not experience an economic miracle. Barbados, I think, on average over this period is growing actually probably a little less than 2% per year per capita terms. So this is not an Asian miracle by any standard. And I'll talk more in detail about some of the policy differences in a second, but basically this is sort of steady as you go growth. Gets them from around $5,000 per capita to almost mid-teens of thousands of dollars per capita. And so that the difference between the average level of income in Barbados and Jamaica today, just the difference between those incomes, is greater than the overall average standard of living in Jamaica today. Now the natural question to ask is why? What happened? So you can think about Barbados and Jamaica as essentially as being a double click on one of those emerging economy line that I showed you earlier. So we're kind of digging in a little bit more micro now to show you what happened. And the difference is policy. Barbados was disciplined, Jamaica was not, to put it simply. What do I mean by that? Well, you see, between 1960 and 1972, very similar trajectories. Very similar trajectories. And it's very tempting, and it's a story that Jamaican policymakers have told. Well, in 1972, there's an oil price shock. That hurts a lot of countries. But that oil price shock hits Jamaica and Barbados in the same way. So we have kind of a quasi-natural experiment here. We have two countries, similar parts of the world, almost identical institutions, English common law, property rights, even the Anglican Church, right? So they're about as close to twins as you can imagine. Hit by this same shock and divergent outcomes. So what happens? In 1972, a politician by the name of Michael Manley runs for prime minister in Jamaica. Michael Manley runs under the banner of democratic socialism. Again, going back to the thing I pointed to earlier, justified means. Jamaica gets independence in 1962. It's a poor country. Many people want a better way of life. Manley promises to give it to them. He wants widespread education, more housing, jobs, all those things that we all want for all of our citizens. The question is, how are you going to deliver it? Okay. So Manley runs under the slogan, better must come. He runs a very popular campaign, an extremely charismatic man. He's the son of a national hero. And Manley wins over 60% of the popular vote and does something really quite unprecedented. He wins a majority, not only of the working poor and the rural vote, he also wins a majority of the business vote. Because they see Manly, because Jamaica in this post-independence period is suffering from a lot of socioeconomic strife, real class tension. And Manly is seen, in a lot of strikes, labor stoppages, and Manly is seen as a person who can actually bridge this gap under this better must come democratic socialism banner. But then when Manly actually takes office, and it becomes clear what his policy, what democratic socialism actually means, and what better must come actually means, and it turns out it means we are going to be an independent country in every sense of the word. We want to be self-sufficient. So we're going to make our own products in every place that we can. We're going to ban imports in certain areas in the interest of becoming self-reliant. We're going to inject the government hand in many areas of national industry, so on and so forth. And you can see the consequences. Manly's strategies, Manly's policies, actually have a major negative impact on the country. From 1972 through 1980, which is when Manly was eventually voted out of office, GDP contracted every single year. Negative growth from 1972 through 1980. Over that same period of time, from 1972 through 1980, the stock market lost 90% of its value. So Manly, who'd run on this platform of helping workers. Let me tell you what happened to workers during that period. So I talked to you about the importance of capital for labor. Well, during that period, as the stock market is losing 90% of its value, the capital stock in Jamaica, which between 1962 and 1972 had grown at 4.3% per year, right? Part of what's driving that growth, okay, investment in plant and equipment, grew by only 0.4% from 1973 to 1988. So a 3.9 percentage point decrease from the previous period, and not even fast enough to keep up with depreciation. So effectively, over this period, you have a decapitalization of the economy. Okay? And in fact, 7 out of the 10 years during that period, the capital stock in Jamaica, the real capital stock actually declined. So what happened to workers from 1970 to 1980? Real wages fell by 130%. By the time Manly left office in 1980, unemployment stood at 30%. So, brilliant man, well-meaning, but his policies, his antagonism towards capital. In fact, in 1975, Manly made a very famous speech. This was towards the end of his first term in office, as there was great disillusion with the plummeting economy. Business people were pushing back. Michael Manley made a famous speech in the National Stadium in which he said, Jamaica has no room for millionaires. If you want to be a millionaire, there are 5 flights a day to Miami. Turns out rhetoric matters. People took him at his word and left the country. So this anti-business, anti-capitalist stance had dramatic consequences, not only for capital, but also for labor.